Welcome to the podcast, man. This is Big Reptile Talk, a place where we hang out in our reptile room and just talk to amazing people along the way. I'm Derek, and we got none of this. Don't even need an introduction, Mr. Gundy. How you doing today, sir?
Hi, Derek. I'm doing great. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Of course, man. Of course, I had to get you in here and pick your brain, man, because you've been doing this for so long, man. Like, how long have you been in the game?
I've had snakes since I was probably 9 or 10, and just like my story is not much different than everybody else's. I was catching animals when I was 10 and 12, and my backyard was filled with a menagerie of hawks and pigeons and doves and mice and rats and ferrets and stuff and raccoons, and that's just how I grew up. And I was lucky that my parents were open and just fine with it all. I never had any issues with my parents at all.
Right. Well, you're a living legend. Like, look, shout out to Kurtwood 75. Do you see that comment? The legend, Mr. Gundy. How does that make you feel when people tell you like you're a legend?
It makes me smile. It just makes me laugh. I'm honored to that you guys think that way about me, and that just makes me happy. It's just talk about a high. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Now, do you remember what was the first reptile that just really kicked off the hobby for you?
Boa constrictor for sure. Yeah,
Your first reptile was a boa?
yeah. I bought a boa for $75 from the local pet shop. It was an adult male. That's what they said. And I kept it on a tree branch suspended from the ceiling of my bedroom right above my bed.
Wow.
So I sawed off a branch, a limb of a walnut tree that we had in the backyard, and I stuck eye hooks up into the sheetrock of the ceiling, and then put fishing line, down, and just let the branch hang on and sit on the fishing line, and that's where I kept my boa 24/7. No heat, no
Wow.
nothing, and that's where he lived, and I lived right below him.
Now, most people when you think of that first reptile, you get that that ball python or that corn snake, but you just jump right to boas.
Yeah, but I got to remember, I'd had hundreds of snakes before I bought and had my first. You asked me my first, really nice snake or whatever. That was the one. All the other
Right.
snakes I had were caught, were wild, locally wild caught.
Right. I've never caught nothing, and I want to go herping, but because you're a big herper. I've never went herping.
Bring it on. Yeah, all your listeners, if you guys are out in the San Jose area, San Francisco Bay Area, and you want to go herping, just call me. My number's out there, and just call me. I'll take you out. It's so much fun. I do it almost every day, so it's like it's the normal thing for me.
Y'all hear that? This man said he will go herping with you. Just call him, man. That's
Yeah.
that's amazing. Now you've been in the game for so long, man. I want to know. You have so much knowledge. Are you self-taught, or did you have a mentor?
I've had actually probably several mentors, whether they knew it or not. I've had several mentors. Yeah, for sure.
Right. And that I think everybody needs that. When you first get into the game, you need that, especially if you want to go super far with it. You need that person that's gonna, teach you about husbandry. It's good to watch videos, but sometimes it's good to, have that person to be like, hey, do this, and this, and
Yeah,
you'll be successful.
yeah. And lucky for me, I started out with colubrids, actually, on a professional level, and
Right.
lucky for me, I had a guy that I would buy, that I bought snakes from locally, and he taught me how to pop colubrids and all, probe and things, and then as I got into more and more from the ball python side of things, I remember calling a very high end, very world renowned breeder and asking them if they could give me any pointers on husbandry and I think at the time it was actually for boas, and the
Right.
response that I got from this person, and everybody would know who they are if I mentioned their names, but the person said that they had looked at their database and they didn't find my name in it. And because, and that meaning that I was not a customer of theirs. And because I was not a customer of theirs, they said that their protocol was not to share their information with people
Wow.
that were not customers. And that was exactly my response. I didn't say that, but the way I felt was, I remember making the, giving myself a mental note. Don't ever say that to anybody, because it was from a business standpoint, it was not the right thing to say. It made me feel in a negative way. I don't know exactly how it made me feel, but it wasn't a positive way. And so that's one of the reasons that incident has caused me to be 180 degrees from that. So where I literally put my number out there, might put my email address out there, I'm bombarded and I love it. I can't get enough.
Right? It's nothing like guiding that new person to the
Oh,
right answer, and makes you
yeah.
feel good inside.
Oh yeah. It's just, and every time it happens, it's that feel good feeling that I get over and over and over again, because I'm
Right,
able
right, right.
to get that person from, oh no, they just bought their first boa and they have no clue. And the people that are training them have no clue. And it's so nice to be able to take that husbandry situation from a very almost almost dangerous, to the point where now at least I can feel good that their snake is healthy and it's going to stay healthy, and we don't have to worry about them having a memory of their snake dying. I'll tell you, if you talk to a lot of beginner breeders, I hear it all the time, because remember, I'm the one that gets these phone calls, and they are told a lot of information that just doesn't, to me, just doesn't make sense. And
Right,
so I like to, sort of take responsibility to jump that person up to the next level, and even maybe a level above that. So where,
right,
when I'm done with that person, they know, and I know that they're going to be able to take the next step, and their animals are going to be healthy. And yeah.
right, right. Right now, how long have you been breeding snakes? Because I know you're a breeder and you currently breed. So how long do you think you've been breeding?
I'd say 30 years.
30 years of breeding.
Hmm.
That's incredible, man. That's incredible. What now? What do you think with because what do you normally breed? Is it like ball?
The
I know you
reason,
like ball
the
pythons.
reason I can tell you that is because I remember putting a boa constrictor on my son's crib when he was sleeping, and he was only a few weeks old, and I took video of it. A baby boa constrictor on his crib, and he's now 32. So that's, yeah. And that was a
That's
boa that
wild.
yeah, it's been a while.
Now, what are you currently breeding right now? The main focus of your collection.
Ball pythons for sure.
Oh,
Yeah,
for
and
sure, for sure.
I was actually selling my colubrid collection, because I was getting burnt out. I was producing about 300 baby snakes a year, and it was just getting too much. And I'd already done that for 10 or 12 years. And as I was selling out my colubrid collection, I just somehow came upon a photograph of a piebald. And I just thought, are you kidding me? And so I just took all the money that I had gained from selling out my colubrid collection, and then turned it right around and purchased as many high-end snakes as I could. And remember, 30 years ago, pieds were going for 25,000. So it was a tough
Jesus.
project to get into. So even hets, male hets, which I ended up buying, were $1,000 a piece. That's how I got my pied project started, was with hets. And then I produced possible hets, and then I raised those possible hets up, and then bred them to their parents, and that's how I started producing my first pines.
Right, right, right. Now, what's your current favorite BP morph?
It's got to be anything pied clown, any combo of pied clown, but it's got to be pied clown combo. Yeah.
Fly clown combo. Shout out to
Yeah.
Fist Family Constrictors. It said, leave a like for the host. You one of the best in the game, Mr.
Uh,
Gundy. What do you think, like, what is with current breeders right now, what do you think a morph is that everybody needs to be working with? Do you think it's the pie clown?
no, there's. I personally love the pies, and I personally love the clowns. So those, and a lot of this is what the reason why I choose my projects is because I love what I'm working with. So I don't choose things that I'm not really interested in. I'm not really interested in some of the higher end stuff, but some genes that I think most everyone needs to have is orange dream, um, pied clowns, pieds and clowns, um, probably some GHI special. I'm really focused on specials right now and trying
Right,
to, everything special het this, special het that, you know.
right. Well, we have a question from the audience. Shout out to Will's Constrictors. He wants to
Oh,
know, how did you find the gold blush jeans?
oh, yeah. Well, it's probably easier for me to say it actually found me because for years and years I was producing them and never even thought about them being a gene trait. I just thought of them as being a beautiful normal. So I sold them as beautiful normals for like $300 a piece. And it never dawned on me that my combos or even my single gene trait animals that I was producing were showing me brighter colors and more constant, less tipping in the scales and things like that. That is one thing that I don't like. And anyway, so I just through the years I was able to isolate that gene trait, and then I was able to isolate it and then reproduce it. So I then proved that the gene trait existed, and now I'm just it's infiltrated in almost everything I have because I've been working with the project years even before I knew I was working with it. And so
Right,
yeah, just about everything in my collection, because almost everything in my collection is related. These are animals that I have my babies that are born this year. I have their parents, their grandparents, their great grandparents, and then maybe even in some cases their great great grandparents. So like I
right,
said, a lot of my animals are related. A lot of my animals are holdbacks. About 90% of the animals I have in my collection are holdbacks. So
right.
I
Now,
know their history, their genetics, their pedigrees, if you will.
I know that's right. Now, with you being a breeder, man, how do you feel like the breeding game is now? Like, do you feel like it's evolved for the better? Talk to me about breeding then versus now.
It's always been and always will be for the better. Every day forward that goes from here is going to bring new snakes, new morphs, new combos. Yeah, and I know I've heard this, and everybody's probably heard it that you know the ball. It's not a good time to get into the ball python project. It's always a good time to get into the ball python projects. Now when you're old like me, I have a different way of thinking about things because as a 68-year-old guy that's already had a heart attack and bypass surgery, I'm not thinking 20 years out in the future. So I'm not looking at doing like triple hets and things like that these days, even though I have double hets, pied clowns that I've been working with for, gosh, probably close to 10 years. I'm not in a position age-wise to, even though I would love to start, I would love to produce ultra male pied clowns. That would be that would be a
Right,
great combo. But I'm not going to be able to do that, and that's just the reality. I have the ability to do it to start it, but you start producing triple hits and then raising them up, and then expecting to produce triple visuals from triple hits. Then the odds start becoming unrealistic. Even
right,
though
right, right,
even though I typically have great odds with my clutches. Um, yeah, you start looking at 1 out of 64, I think it is, for a triple visual. Man, I got
right. Now,
yeah.
Samson, he has a question for you. He wants
Mhm.
to know. Are you have any clutches of the gold blush coming soon?
I don't have any single trait gold blush in my collection right now. Now I will have, and possibly will have, babies coming up. But I have several clutches that are going to be hatching in the next few weeks or so that should have some beautiful, gorgeous babies in them. And they're
Right.
all blush.
Okay. We love that. We love that. We can't wait to see him. Now, with you being a legend in the game, man, I gotta ask this, because you've been in it for so long. Were you around when Tom Crutchfield's lists were out?
Yes. His price lists.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's what I was when you and I were first talking, and you mentioned Tom Crutchfield, and I told you I've never met him, but he's been I don't know, a mentor of a lot of people, but he's definitely been someone that we've all looked up to and admired, and for all of our lives. I mean, I remember Tom when I was a kid. And like you say, the price list where you buy a boa by the foot. That's how you
By the
bought,
foot.
by the foot. You wanted a 6-foot boa, there was the price. If you wanted a 3-foot boa, there was the price. And you would
So
just
he
get.
so he's
Go ahead.
so he was hitting you with money per foot. So if it was like a 4 foot boa, he said, I want 50 bucks a foot.
Yes. Yeah. And that's how it went everywhere. That's how we did business back in the day. Sometimes you'd get photographs. You'd have to send a self-addressed stamped envelope to the breeder, and then they would send you back a price list showing all the animals they had and the prices they wanted for them. And some of them were really good, where they actually brought and sent you back photographs. You know,
That's
so
crazy, man. I wish I would have been around to see that, man. Those things are
that's how you would pick
legendary.
out your snakes, by looking at the photographs from the envelope. There was no computers. There was nothing, nothing like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, with you being a breeder, man, in the hobby, I'm curious, did to be, if somebody wanted to be a breeder full time and really be successful at breeding, do you feel like a breeder needs to not just, breed snakes, but they should also breed rats to be successful?
And not only that, you need to do educational presentations. If you really want to do this for a living, now, sure, there are just the Justins of the world and the Kevins of the world, and that list goes on and on. But I'm just thinking personally, if I bred snakes for a living, I would not be able to make a living. It's actually the educational presentations that I do that pay my bills. I don't even think of how much money my reptiles are going to give me this year, because I don't really know. I don't know what I'm going to hatch. I don't know who's going to buy. There's a lot of unknowns, but yeah, the presentations that I'm doing, that's really that pays the bills.
Right. I know you do a lot of that. I've seen that. Like you've took snakes to cheerleaders or football teams and
Mhm.
all kind of places just to show snakes and talk about them, man.
Yeah,
How do
and
you like doing that?
we actually did Google's Christmas party about 5-6 years ago or so, for 750 employees at the Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco. And we did it for 4 hours, and it was just you can actually watch the video on YouTube. I have lots and lots of videos on YouTube, and just put Brian Gundy / Google, and you'll see that party we had. It was great. But yeah, the parties are the educational presentations are a blast. I can't tell you how much fun I have at every single one of them. When I'm going to work to do my presentations, it's just the best time I can think of.
Right, right, right. Now,
See you tomorrow. I can't wait.
I love that. I love that you don't just breed, that you want to educate people because that's really the education part is what's going to get rid of these reptile bans.
Oh yeah, it's my. There's nothing more fun for me to take my audience from where they are emotionally at the beginning of each program to where I'm going the the adventure I'm going to bring them on or take them on, so that when they get to the other side, when we're ready to let all the animals go that I bring on these tables and people get to touch and hold everything, it's so fun to watch that journey from fear to, what, are you kidding me? These are animals. They start draping and they just, and yeah. And it's all about the fear and lack of it for the snakes and the audience and the people. And it's just so much fun.
I agree. I agree. Now, currently, what's your favorite snake right now?
Pied.
Like, I mean, like species, like ball python, boa.
Yeah. You know, I like colubrids. I like, the mountain king snakes. Gosh, I just, yeah.
I
Um,
love solid choice. I love king snakes.
Yeah, and even cow kings. I'm out herping all the time, and those are the snakes I'm really looking for. I see a lot of gopher snakes and a lot of rattlesnakes, but it's really the mountain king snakes that I'm looking for, and I haven't found one in about 2 years.
Mm,
And I'm out almost every day looking for them, and it's been 2 years since I found one. So
right
it's
now,
snake to find is what I'm talking about. What I'm saying.
right now, I got to tell you, one of my favorite breeders is Fitz family constrictors, and I say that to lead into this next question. This is a hot seat question. We love everybody, but this is a hot seat.
Yeah, yeah.
Currently, right now, who is one of your favorite breeders?
I would say Rich McCall from Rich
Okay.
McCall Serpents. Of anybody that I have purchased snakes from in the last maybe even 10 years, Rich is the only person I buy from. He's my guy. And I'm sure I could go to Justin and I could go to all these other places. But Rich, it's interesting because I mentored him when he was first beginning. He used to come over to my house and, knock on the door and ask if I could play and things like, but, I would, pop his snakes for him and teach him how to pop his snakes. But talk about quality animals. He has an eye that is, I think, very rare, especially and he's not been doing this a long time, maybe 8-10 years. But he's got some animals that are just second to none. And
Right.
yeah, so he's my go-to guy.
Did you see that DG Reptiles? He said Derek is writing that name down. It'll be the next interview. He's actually not lying. I actually wrote down Rich, but I don't know how to
Oh
spell his
yeah,
last
Rich,
name.
Rich
What's the
McCall.
last name? McCullum?
McCall. It's a tricky spelling, M capital C lowercase c or something like that. OLL. Rich McCall
Oh,
Serpents, and he's on
okay, I'm
YouTube.
about to
He's
look
on
him up.
Instagram, and he's got stuff that you wouldn't believe. And yeah, there's a
He's not. He's
guy
not. He's
you'd want to
he's
read
not
it.
wrong.
What's that?
I said DG Reptiles isn't wrong. I was writing that name down. Now, can you give somebody that's wanting to follow in your footsteps? Can you give anybody some new breeder advice?
Don't be afraid to spend as much money as you possibly can. Now, that's advice that you probably don't hear very much, and probably most people could give you just the opposite. But most of the big breeders that I've ever known, and I've known some big ones, that's the advice they gave me. And they were already top breeders, whether it was with colubrids or ball pythons. But yeah, don't be afraid to spend the money. Get those expensive animals now. Start raising them up so that by the time you're ready producing babies from them, at least hopefully they're not going to drop that much in value. That seems to be the problem, and that's why I always recommend that make sure you have something going on with the recessives, because if you don't, your price point is not going to be high enough, at least in my opinion, to maybe even break even for the cost of having our collections. It's it starts to get pretty expensive. You all know, And so if you can't at least break even with your sales, then it's a hobby, and that's great. I've always thought of this as a hobby, and it will always be a hobby for me. Um, but yeah, I think buy those expensive animals, take the risk, make sure your husbandry is right. And before I forget, I just want to make one announcement, because it seems to be an observation that I'm making from all the calls and stuff I get. Make sure that your ambient temperature is high. And when I say high, I just mean that it's not low. I want to see it between 80 and 83 at the lowest. If I have 84 or even 85 ambient, I'm fine with that. If I start seeing 77 and 80, I know from 100 years of doing this that I'm going to start seeing RI. I just know it. It's just, and I was a vet tech for 9 years. So this is, one of my areas of understanding. And yeah, so keep your ambient temperature high, however you want to do it. Remember, these animals are in holes under the ground. They're subterrestrial, which means under the ground. So their ambient temperature is really based on the temperature of the underground. And remember also that 89 degrees seems to be the sweet spot for incubation. So if that's the sweet spot for incubation, then the sweet spot for the animal itself, because these animals live where they lay their eggs, must be at around 89 degrees. So if you keep that in mind as you beginners are starting to look at your ambient temperatures and stuff, it's that sweet variation between 80 and 90 degrees that will keep your animals from, in some cases, from getting RI. And for those of you that may not know what RI is, that's respiratory infection. It's usually costs about $250 to $300 for a series of injections from your local vet. And then there's always a chance, even after the $300 expense, that the animal will die. So, and that's just, I can't tell you how many animals I've had. My guess would be 20 or 30 at least through the 20 or 30 years I've been doing this, where I've had snakes die of respiratory infection. Now it's a very rare thing. And it's one of the reasons is because I have a space heater in my snake room that keeps the ambient temperature at around 83 degrees. So that's
exactly what I have too.
Good. Yeah, those are things that I hear a lot from the beginners, that they're going in, they're buying their snakes from Petco and PetSmart, and when they buy the snake, they ask the person, so what do I need to, the person on the other side of the counter, what do I need to keep this snake warm? And they just say either usually they'll say either a heat lamp from above or a heat mat from below, and one or the other. But if you're not going to use both, then you're not going to have your ambient temperature where it needs to be to keep your snake warm. I know we're not talking rack systems here. We're talking, most beginners don't use racks. So you have to, when you're coaching them, you have to think of what they're working with, and what they're working with is, as the ambient temperature typically in their homes is between 68 and 72. That means that if they're not dealing with a primary source of heat and what I call a secondary source of heat, then they're not going to keep their snake warm enough. And as far as, it's probably going to die.
Right.
Or it'll stop eating and it will eventually die, or get respiratory infection and die. But
that's excellent advice.
Ambient, really good.
Now, can you because you do a lot of breeding, can you give a new person any tips on how to reduce slugs?
Yeah, that's very good question. Make sure that your ambient is not too high during the breeding season. If your ambient is too high, let's think about it for a minute. If your female has a clutch of slugs, is it the male's fault or our fault? Is it because of the male, or is it because of the female that those slugs aren't fertilized? So my thought process, I just thinking that the female laid the egg so that she, she did she did her job, but the male's part didn't take hold. And so I think that if your ambient temperature is too warm during the breeding season, that the sperm will not act as efficiently or effectively, however you want to say. And yet that's how you end up with either, yeah, I just think that temperature has a lot to do with it.
That's excellent. That is excellent advice. And I love that, man. We're getting some amazing advice from a legend in the hobby. Now, this is a hot seat question. With you having so many reptiles, now I don't know if I want to get you in trouble, but have you ever lied to your wife about the cost of a snake? You're like, babe, this is
Hundreds of times. Sorry, babe.
you said, babe, this
No,
is 200, but I need it,
no,
and it's really
no,
600.
no. Most of the snakes that I have bought, it's a group decision. Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to. She heard that. Oh, yeah. Here she comes. But yeah, no, I've been in trouble many, many times in my life, and I'm not one to look for it. So I kind of headed off at the pass, and I want to know that my lady is going to be okay with what I'm going to do. And
Right.
normally she's not, but normally I can talk her into let me do what I want to do, and that's it. But yeah, at least have to have that conversation.
Now, I want to talk about egg cutting. What's your take on egg cutting? Some people, and I don't judge anybody. Some people like it, some people don't. Even some of the biggest people in the hobby, like Jay Brewer, gets a lot of shit for cutting eggs. What's your take on it? Do you agree with it? Do you not agree with it? What's your take on it?
For me, it's not an agree or disagree, because everybody's got their own histories and everything. I wait now. Now it's not always been this way. I have evolved through time to where I used to cut eggs at 48 days. I couldn't wait to see what was in. I mean, just to be honest, I couldn't wait. I was the same way with pigeon eggs when I was, I competitively raced pigeons for 25 years. And there were times when I would be watching a pigeon pipping out of an egg, and I'd want to, peel that shell off. So yeah, I used to cut at 48, and I had a couple animals die. So what I did was totally switched my logic to I wait now until I get at least 1 or 2 pippers, and then I cut everything. Because the reason, in my opinion, the reason that if you cut eggs too early, especially with ball pythons, they can actually, and they have, drowned in their own eggs. I just to kind of give you guys a sort of a history, I had a clutch of 12 cow king eggs that all hatched at the same time. I opened up the tub. I saw every single head of every single snake coming out of its egg. I can count 12. I closed the lid, came back a few hours later, hoping to see some snakes crawling around. No heads on any of those eggs. Every head was in the egg. None of those animals survived. Now, with that being said, now that's colubrid eggs. Now, you wouldn't want to cut colubrid eggs, because if you cut colubrid eggs, that little cow king will just explode out of that egg. It's like a little tegu. When what's his name from I can't even remember. Tickles those eggs, and those tegu eggs. I don't know if you've ever seen that, and the tegu just pops right out. Well, yeah. So now I wait until things start pipping, and then I'm ready to cut. And I'm not. So at least in my mind, I feel that the baby snake is physiologically ready to breathe. And as soon as I think that's what's happening, and then I feel good about the eggs or the baby surviving if I cut it. But yeah, I cut.
Right.
I've
Yeah, I
always
hear
cut
that.
ball python eggs. Always
So
will.
make sure you cut it. Do what you got to do. Just make sure you do it at the right time, is what he's saying.
Yes. and wait as long as possible. Don't start too early. And I'm just telling you from my own experience. Yeah, wait until those babies start breathing, and once they start breathing, that's what's going to trigger that umbilical or the yolk sac to start absorbing. It's that breathing that triggers it, and so yeah, let that little guy breathe for a couple of days, and before you know it, he's out. And everybody's happy.
Right now, I do want to talk about herping, man, because you're a legend in the game, man. So this is like a two-part question. You
Sure.
herp a lot, so I want to know what's the best find that you have found when you were herping, and if you could go herping with anybody, alive or dead, who would it be?
Okay. Well, the second question is easy, but let's go with the first one. It's the mountain king snake. Is that's the animal I'm looking for. That's the top on the food chain. It's the top of my list. And every time I catch one, I cannot believe that I'm letting it go. It's like it's the strangest thing. I should not be letting a mountain king snake go. It's like letting a pied go or a clown pied. We wouldn't want to do that, right? You catch one of the most beautiful snakes on the planet and you let it go. Or the same thing with San Francisco garter snakes. Oh, that's like a snake that you can only imagine seeing. And when you see it in person, it's like, I don't know, it's hard to explain because the colors are just so bright. And yeah, it's just, yeah. But those two snakes are just gorgeous. And lucky for me, they're right here where I live.
Right,
So that's what makes it nice for me.
right. Now, if you could go herping with anybody, man, alive or dead, who would it be?
Steve Irwin.
You know what? I knew that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's no
wouldn't
question.
that be amazing to go herping with him?
Gee. I don't know if you guys know Bob Applegate. He's a I don't even know if he's still alive. He probably isn't. Um, but he's an old colubrid breeder. He's got Pyros, or the Arizona Mountain King snake, named after him. He's written lots of books and stuff. But I remember him telling me that he had Steve at his house in LA, San Diego area, and they went out sidewinder hunting. And if you guys ever worked with sidewinders, they're about as fast as lightning. And he actually was holding them. And I'm thinking, no, this is not going to happen. But yeah, Steve Irwin would be, I mean, who else would you pick if you
Right.
could, if you couldn't? Yeah. So that's my answer.
I love that answer, man. I gotta say that's my catchphrase. I love that answer.
Thanks.
Now, I feel like you leaving your mark in the game, man. Not even leaving. I feel like you have left your mark in the game. You're a certified legend in the hobby. So I gotta ask this, man. Lord forbid anything happened to you. But if you wasn't here and they was making the Brian Gundy, movie, who's playing Brian Gundy? Anybody who's playing Brian Gundy?
Uh, Hugh Jackman.
Ah, Wolverine.
Yeah, I love the guy. Yeah.
Dude,
Hey,
I'd pay
and my
money to
wife
see
has
that.
a huge crush on him, so that'll work out too. So
I'd pay money to see it. The Hugh Jackman, Brian Gundy reptile movie.
now we're talking. Yep.
I'd pay to see Wolverine hold some snakes. Of course,
Hey,
not with the razors, but
let's get something started here.
I'm about to inbox him on Instagram now. I feel like now with you being a breeder, man, do you feel like people can still make money selling snakes, or do you feel like the market is saturated? It's too many breeders.
I don't think so at all. I sell out every year, and I don't even post anything, and I'm sure I'm not the only person. And yeah, pretty much everybody I know that's breeding ball pythons is selling ball pythons. And I think as long as you're going to see that, then there's no reason to think negative about this market at all. You know, we have new people coming in, and we have the old timers that are stretching the envelope. They're cutting the edge, and and they're doing things that weren't, we couldn't even think about a few years ago. Look, we don't even know what Justin is producing this year. No, none of us know, or Kevin. When you're starting to get, I think at that level, it's it's a different ball game. These are cutting edge breeders that are creating the path for the rest of us.
Right. Now, I wanted to talk to you about your YouTube, man, because I had a couple ideas.
Oh, go ahead.
Your YouTube is doing big things. Over 15,000 subscribers, man. One day I aspire to get that many subscribers. But I wanted to take you have so much knowledge, man. I feel like you need to make that return to YouTube because I think it's been like when I looked, it's been like 11 months since you've made a YouTube video. Your
Yeah.
your knowledge is damn near unmatched. I feel like you need to get back on YouTube and put out some of that information that you got because it's there
Well,
and people want to
I
hear it.
just, I've kind of run. So I mean, I've kind of run out of ideas because I already showed everybody how to pop. I already showed everybody how to probe. I showed how this and that, and yeah. So I don't know what to do, and so I do a lot of Instagram. And I don't. Every one of my videos, and you guys obviously know this, they're raw. I don't do any editing. I don't know how to edit. I'm not a computer person. you know. But so Instagram is where I'm at right now. I'm on Instagram almost every day.
I see that.
That's where
But
that's my focus right now. It
I
just
know that I got
that's
to give you an idea, and I feel like this idea that I give you would get millions of views
okay.
on like maybe like take like 3 or 4 days,
Okay.
and I feel like you a legend. And if you linked up with Crushfield, he a legend.
I'm not going
But that'd
after.
be mind blowing.
Oh, oh yeah. Well, he's the guy. He's the legend. Are you kidding me? Oh yeah. I was talking to you earlier. I remember Tom, his name, when I was a kid. He's been in it. If I've been in it for 30 years, he's been in it for 40 or 45, my guess would be. you know.
Right?
And you same with Barchek. I remember buying a snake from Barchek uh, when I first started Colubrids, and I paid $3,000 for an albino Honduran milk snake. Okay. And I didn't know Brian from Adam, and Brian and I are good friends. And if when we see each other, we give each other a hug. I mean, it's just, it's a heartfelt hug. But I remember buying this snake from him, and when I got the snake home, when it was shipped to me, and Brian probably doesn't even remember this. Anyway, he had sent me the most beautiful. And remember now, there are no albino Hondurans in the United States. Brian's the only one that has them. They came out of Germany when the wall came down, and he could tell you much better about this than I could. But when the wall in Berlin, I think it was in Berlin, came down, we were able to get snakes from Germany that we were never able to get before. And some of those snakes were the albino Hondurans. Brian was one of the, if not the first person to get these. Anyway, so I got this snake from him. And not only did I get the snake that I paid for, but he also shipped me for free as a gift. And I don't even know this dude. And he shipped me a male het Honduran that when I bred them together, their babies were amazing. So, I don't get to plug Brian very often. So there's a plug for Brian. I remember one of my first experience is as a herpetoculturalist, and Brian Barchek gave me a snake. So you can't start much better than that as far as memories of certain people.
Right.
So
Brian Barczyk is a legend, man. We definitely need him.
he will
Speaking
always be
of
on
Brian
top.
Barczyk, man,
What's that?
I said Brian Barczyk is a legend in the game. We definitely need him. So you know what? I'm gonna put you in the hot seat again. If you were, I don't know if you weren't doing, all the work you're doing right now, you were needed a job. There was only like 3 jobs in the world. Where
Right.
would you work and why? At the Reptarian with Brian Barczyk, at Gatorland with Savannah Bone, or at Nerd. All great people. Where would you work and why?
Oh, I'd be with Brian.
Oh, for sure. I knew it.
Yeah. And no,
See, the
no offense,
legend.
no offense to anyone else, but I've only met Kevin once. We've only talked for a few minutes, and he's a great guy and everything. I've not met what's her name. I've seen her on YouTube. I know who she is. You know, Brian and Brian, both Brian's know her very well. But yeah, Brian for sure.
Right, right, right. Well, with you two, breeding ball pythons, there is something that I always ask everybody too, because there's so many people that want to breed, want to get into that part of the hobby.
Hmm.
Give us tips on stopping a ball python feeding strike.
Oh, that's easy. Pick it up every day. Hold it for 15, 20, 30, 40 minutes. Hold it a lot every day, even if it's only for 10 minutes. And you will not be basically training that animal Pavlov's theory. And that's really what it comes down to. Is if the only time you open up that snake's tub is to feed it, then it's going to learn. You're going to teach that animal real quick that it's the tub opens and I'm fed. The tub is open and I fed. And before you know it, that snake's going to as soon as that tub is touched, he's going to anticipate being fed. So if you hold the snake a lot, and one way I do this is I'm cleaning cages constantly, every single day. I'm cleaning cages. And it doesn't matter to me if I just cleaned that cage yesterday, if I pull that tub in it, and is there any kind of dropping or urate in there, it's going through the cleaning process. So while I'm doing that, I'm typically putting the snakes around my neck every day. So before you know it, my snakes don't sense fear because I'm pulling them out of their tubs almost every day. And when I do that, I'm holding them and there's no fear. So I'm not getting struck because of fear and I'm not getting struck because of the feeding response. So that creates an amazing sort of emotion within the group of animals. Another thing I would like, this is a great opportunity for me to talk to you. How many people do we have in here right now?
Well, we were up to almost 20. We're at 10 now. But
Okay.
it's people are going to come in and go. And
Okay.
this is going to get some more
So
views.
when you purchase, and this is 180 degrees from anybody else, what anybody else is going to tell you. When you purchase an animal, feed it the next day. Okay. And here's the reason why. If your animal is scared, which it's going to be, and maybe hungry because it really wouldn't eat if it wasn't hungry. So you have an animal, a baby that's scared and hungry, and it's coming to your place, and it's it's uncomfortable. It's all the negative things you can imagine in an animal. If you can get that animal to eat, think about it. If somebody, Derek, took you from where you are right now and took you into a prison cell, okay, and gave you a TV and a channel changer and 300 channels, a steak and a lobster and your favorite beverage, wouldn't you feel much better than if they hadn't given you that steak and that lobster and that TV and all those other things? So if you want to see an animal calm down, don't give it 3 or 4 days alone. Smother it. As a falconer, I'm also a falconer. As a falconer, there's one thing that all falconers know, because they have to take a test to become a falconer, is that they have to understand the term manning. That term, the definition of the term manning, is where we have to stay 18 hours with the bird to calm it down, to get it tame enough to eat. Because if it doesn't eat, it will die. The metabolism on birds of prey is so fast that if they don't eat within 2 or 3 days, they will die. Just the opposite with snakes. That's why it's so easy to catch a hawk in the wintertime when the food sources are not as heavy. But yeah, you have to spend a huge amount of time with these animals to get them to relax. If you see a person with a lion, a otter, or pretty much any type of animal, and that animal is relaxed with them and is doing just like one with them, it's not because they made themselves scarce between that animal. It's because they have smothered that animal with their time. So if you get a snake and you're purchased a snake and you get it home or whatever, pick it up. Let that snake know that you're not going to hurt it. Do not touch its head. Ball pythons are very head shy. That's right. That's the reason why we call them ball pythons, because if they feel scared or threatened, they're going to roll up into a ball so tight that you can play catch with them. And the reason why they do that is to protect their heads. And what causes what triggers that response is fear. So if you can handle the animal and just let it get to the point where, well, there's just nothing to be afraid of, then, and I tell this to my audiences all the time, I don't, in my opinion, snakes and puppies have about the same temperament. Mine do. My audiences think they do. And we've had over 50,000 children handle my animals, and we have never had a single issue. Never. And I don't train the animals to do anything. I just teach them that they don't have to be afraid of people. And then I teach the audiences that they don't obviously have to be afraid of the snakes, but things not to do, like don't touch the snake's head, don't stare into their faces. And then I explain reasons why, and it's all about fear or the lack of it. But if you buy a snake, handle it, smother it. When I got my tegu, Underground Reptiles, that's the place. It was just a few days old. It was 12, 13 inches long. I took that tegu into the house from my snake room every single night at about 7 o'clock until about 9 o'clock. And that tegu and I spent time physically together. I never let the tegu off of my body for 2 hours at a time. And I would just be watching TV, with my family and stuff. And that tegu will follow me around the yard. He obviously knows who I am. He wants to be affectionate. If I touch him in certain places, he's like a cat, and he just, yeah.
Puppy dog thing.
Exactly. And that's how you get it done. If you catch a red-tailed hawk and you don't man it, if you don't spend 18 hours with it nonstop, you're going to have to let that bird go because it will continuously be afraid. So smother your animals with time. Don't wait 3 or 4 days like everybody else has told you. When I sell animals to people, I tell them to get it out that day. You get it that day, get it out, touch it, handle it. Start to teach that animal that it doesn't have to be afraid. And as soon as you do that, well, then you got a puppy.
That's knowledge, man. Mr. Gundy, we
And
went almost an hour, man.
That's 180 degrees from what everybody, I'm sure, from what most people will tell you. But that works.
What you just said is the complete opposite, and it's mind blowing.
I do it the same way with food. I think when you get that snake in, feed it the next day. Give that snake that steak and lobster dinner, and start to create that environment for the snake to become more relaxed. Not looking for its meal, not scared to death, but just going to sleep and relax because it's got its steak and lobster,
Man, Mr. Gundy, let me tell you something, man. You got a plethora of knowledge. I just want to tell you that I'm a big fan and I appreciate you.
Thanks, Derek. I appreciate it.
Now, we went an hour. This is big reptile talk. I normally like to go an hour, keep it to that time to where we can eventually do this again in the future.
Of course.
Man, first off, again, thank you, man. Thank you. I'm going to let you go. But before I let you go, I like to end my interviews giving shout outs to the reptile community I'm a part of. So first off, shout out to Iron Dog, My Animal House, J&G Reptiles, Kurt Wood, Venom Wonderful, Reptile Feedings, Wiz Constrictor Reptiles, DG Reptiles, DNG, Joe Shaloner, Wiz Constrictors, Samson Riviera for helping me. Just everybody, man. Prehistoric Companions, Michaela, Kara Shea, L Harper Reptiles, just everybody in the chat, man. I appreciate y'all for watching. Spider Mom, everybody, man. This was you just gave us a plethora of knowledge. Look right there. That's some great advice. Uh, this right here, this man is a legend. He's been in the game 30 plus years. Go subscribe to his YouTube. Go subscribe to his Instagram. Give him some love on him. Love him, man. This is the our legend of reptiles,
I
man.
have never got anything but love from this community. So
All right,
I
well,
love all of you guys. You guys are my heroes.
all right, well, this is Big Reptile Talk. I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna play us out. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate you.
You're very welcome,
All right,
and appreciate you too, bud.
thank you. Hopefully, we can do it again sometime.
Anytime.
Thank you so much.